I think all gamers have had this unrealistic dream that one day a game will come out and be the size of the actual Earth. I actually remember having conversations like this with my friends at school. But personally, even in today's age, I think we are a long way away from that becoming a reality. But today we're going to look at a game that boasts a map size of 2016 kilometers squared. So how big is that? Well, it's just under the size of one of the smallest landlocked countries in Europe, Luxembourg. Well, one of the largest MMOs available right now is actually the Lord of the Rings Online at 376 kilometers squared. You may think that games like Guild Wars 2, Nightfall are bigger because you watched an immensely inaccurate map size comparison video on YouTube, but it isn't, okay? In fact, when researching this video, it is very difficult to get accurate info on how large game maps are. It is pretty hard to do for yourself unless you are an actual game dev, and you have actually released that information. So it is really difficult to get an accurate answer on how big MMO game maps are, but a very intelligent YouTuber by the name of MiniXPBounder used a very intuitive method to work out how large the Lord of the Rings Online map is. But again, it is just a educated guess. Bethesda, for instance, claim that the Elder Scrolls Arena has a map size of 9 million kilometers squared, and Daggerfall is something in the ballpark of 400,000 and the actual size of Great Britain, which is obviously complete and utter bollocks. Many devs have just simply outright lied and exaggerated the map size of their games. The MMO we're talking about today is called Quinfall, and we are supposed to believe that this MMO has the map size 5 times the size of the Lord of the Rings Online, when Lord of the Rings Online has been in development for 16 years, and even on release it was a huge game. It's always been much bigger than games like World of Warcraft. By the way, I did recently make a video about my experience playing vanilla Lord of the Rings Online on a very interesting private server project. You'll see a card on the screen if you want to check it out, and it'll also be linked in the description. But the Turkish studio Vorek Studios, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, really are marketing the game as the biggest MMO universe, the biggest MMO landmass that has ever come out in the history of MMOs. Apparently, it will be the biggest MMO of all time. And it's set to release this year, actually. There's a launch trailer out and it is viewable on Steam without the price tag. This studio, Vorek, was founded in 2021, so this game has been in development for 1 to 2 years, yet it is going to be the biggest MMO game map we have ever seen, apparently. Now, how on earth is that possible, you may ask? Well, apparently, it is possible using AI systems. So I'm going to quote from their website here: Vorek Studios intends to become one of the pioneers of the industry with advanced technologies and AI systems. So essentially they're going to create an open world MMO on Unity engine with AI technology, creating the landmass for them. Now, I don't want to turn into a negative Nelly about this because we really don't know what this will turn into. An MMO has not been made by AI before. The only similar thing we've seen is people using an actual MMO game engine and a world to train AI systems. Obviously we do have games like Minecraft and Valheim, but these are randomly generated, not a single polished world that will be the same for everyone when they log in. AI technology is definitely on the rise and becoming scarily good technology, to be honest. Like, I am getting massive Terminator Skynet vibes whenever I read news about it or people showing off what it can do. But my worry really with letting the computer design an MMO is that the open world will become too bland and repetitive. But then again, looking at what AI can create when it comes to 2D art from very simple commands, then maybe not. Nonetheless, this is a very interesting development in the gaming industry because if AI game development becomes successful, I mean, there'll be less human power required to design games. It could mean that games could release better and faster, and the human is only required to polish things after the AI has done most of the work. But back to Quinfall. We have a trailer and some basic info on what the MMO is going to be. I think this MMO really is a pilot test of how good we can make an MMO with AI, and how fast can we do it? The game is going to be a sandbox MMO, so I'd imagine it'd be very similar to games like Valheim and New World and Minecraft. When it comes to the survival and sandbox elements anyway, because at heart this is going to be an MMO and still feel like an MMO. There's probably going to be very little hand-holding and the player is going to be left to their own devices. The game will probably focus more on player-driven and created content, which, as we know, normally does, let's be honest, turn out to be a complete disaster. Because people will act like complete psychopathic morons in MMOs, who would have guessed that? There's very few screenshots, but we've seen something that may look like a world boss, we've seen professions, interiors, and some also cool looking towns. We know there's going to be character customization, huge PvP battles, on ships, so in the ocean, island invasions, and castle sieges. We don't know much about how the PvE content is going to look, whether there's going to be raids or instant content like dungeons. They claim the game will have a storyline and side quests, there'll be 9 different weapon systems, and we will be able to, and I quote, determine the fate of Middle-earth. And that is out of a dev's mouth, by the way. And you see, things like that very worry me. Apparently I forgot how to speak English then. Things like that worry me a lot, because you can't just rip off the Lord of the Rings by calling your world Middle-earth. Hopefully that is just a bad translation. The game does look stunning, I can't deny that, and the combat looks like it could be fun, but obviously I would have to play it before I can really comment on that. I think if this game stays grounded and just focuses on becoming Valheim with better graphics and a huge open world to explore created by AI, this game will probably be interesting and worth looking into. But if they take an unrealistic and over-ambitious route and attempt to make an MMO with a world with the same variety and diversity you'd expect in a typical MMO like WoW, but 2,000 kilometers squared, then I can see, this game being a complete flop. But again, if it turns out this game is going to focus more on sandbox exploration, survival, with good open world PvP content, then I can see this game being quite fun to check out with your friends. If the game actually turns out to be 2,000 kilometers squared, it'll be very fun to explore a world that big, if it isn't a repetitive bland world with nothing to find anyway. Just imagine this scenario: you're adventuring with your friends and you've been exploring a forest for about an hour, gathering resources and killing mobs for XP, and you discover an ancient ruin. I mean, how exciting would that feel? Not knowing what's inside, but being able to go inside and explore. And just that sensation of being able to just walk or run or get on your mount, you can actually tame mounts in this game, in a certain direction for half a day probably, let's be honest, maybe even a whole day on horseback in one direction and still not reaching the end of the map. Okay, fair enough, that could be quite cool. But like I said, there has to be something in this world in order to make it interesting, otherwise it would just be a big world MMO simulator. It wouldn't be that much of a game. I think many MMOs do focus too much on following the typical World of Warcraft model, get to max level doing quests and then do raids and dungeons, rather than focusing on, for instance, endgame exploration content, because once you're max level in World of Warcraft, there's no point going into the open world really, unless you need to farm some gold. You just do your raids and you log out. With a map this big, it'll probably take weeks to explore. In fact, I won't be surprised if you play this game for a year and still discover there's new areas when you log in. It'd be nice to play an MMO where, even once you've reached max level, there's still a need for you to go into the world and explore. But this is me looking at the whole game with a very positive lens. I think the MMO audience and MMO content creators are overall very negative, and definitely guilty myself of being too negative in my videos. But again, that is just a positive lens that I'm looking at the game through. Because obviously there is a lot of red flags when looking at this project. The devs of this game have some huge pants to fill with this project, especially as they really aren't spending a lot of time developing this game. MMOs typically take between 4 to 10 years to make, good ones anyway. WoW was actually made in 4 to 5 years, and they're trying to release this in 2023 and only started in 2021, but to be honest, on the website it looks like they actually started in 2022. And apparently they're also working on a Turkish MMO called Kayra Online. Who knows what this project will turn into? You know, it might even just end up turning into a total scam MMO. Only time will tell. But anyway guys, my name is MetaGoblin. Until my next video, ciao.